Welcome to today's episode of the Divorce Chronicles. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and today I'm honored to host two extraordinary leaders and advocates, Jill Montes and Dr. Ramona Probasco, co-champions behind the Healing Well and Living Free Foundation. This mission is to help individuals and families affected by abuse and domestic violence to heal well and live free. They do this not just through advocacy, but through real, tangible support, creating moments of joy for protective parents and their children, offering vetted resources and screening tools for survivors, and educating allies, attorneys, and professionals so they can walk alongside survivors more effectively. In today's conversation, we'll dig into the vision behind HWLF, the challenges and triumphs they've encountered, and how Jill and Dr. Probasco approach the deeply personal and systemic work of healing, justice, and freedom. Dr. Ramona and Jill, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk about your foundation and what you guys have been working on.
We are thrilled to be invited to do this. Thank you, Shauna. We are excited to share with you about our foundation, so thank you.
So could you share with us a little bit about the story behind the Healing Well and Living Free Foundation, how it got started?
Be happy to. It actually was birthed out of a book that I wrote and that was released in June of 2018 based on the same name, Healing Well and Living Free from an Abusive Relationship. And the book is my story, but so much more. It's my story and the stories of other women who have experienced the same trauma of domestic violence. So from that, we decided let's take this even further and create a foundation where we can have a national impact on women who have gone through what Jill and I have gone through. And men too, this happens to men. So it's really, we have a heart to do and help people that have helped us, kind of pay it forward.
Absolutely. And what made you decide now that now is the time to launch the foundation?
Well, the foundation's been around actually for a couple of years, but really it was kind of organic, I guess you could say. After the book was released, there was a really positive response to it. And, people that have gone through domestic violence, it's almost like someone who's been to war. And when you go to war together, even if you've never met the other person, you didn't know the other person, there is this bond and attachment that just happens because of a shared experience. And so the desire behind the foundation really is based on a couple things. One is our initiative, Make a Moment, and I can talk more about that later if you'd like, but the Make a Moment initiative, and then what Jill spearheaded, our Advancing Justice Legal Resource, are the two main thrusts behind our foundation.
So Jill, it's been a long, hard battle for you getting to where you are, and it's still ongoing. Would you like to speak on what this foundation has meant to you in your own personal battle or helping others, as Dr. Ramona said?
Yes. So I met Dr. Ramona in 2015 as she was a therapist recommended to me by my attorney, of all people, because I believe they did a radio show together back then. And she told me from the beginning, once you know this woman's story, you'll know why she's the person for you. And from 2015 to 2018, when I was going in the thick of an abusive marriage until I filed for divorce in 2018, Dr. Ramona was my therapist and saw me through what I look back on as just like such a different version of myself 10 years ago, not knowing really how to describe abuse. I didn't have words for what was happening to me. So much of it was coercive control. And Dr. Ramona was always there and pointing me to other resources when I'd get hung up on things. I got hung up on my faith, and learning Dr. Ramona's story was just even more insight into, oh my gosh, you too. And understanding that there's so many women who are wrestling with kind of figuring out what this abuse even is. And then the struggle of what does this mean in light of my faith and what my church tells me. Mm-hmm. So by 2018, when I was in a place, I came up with a whole plan with Dr. Ramona because we'd worked on safety plans. It was such a security to me to know that I had somebody who knew the story, of where I'd come from something similar. And by the time you fast forward to her starting this foundation, and asking me to be involved. That was just the greatest honor. It felt like graduating from therapy. Like I can now be a part of helping others through it.
Amazing. I love that. And like you said, a lot of people who are in those relationships where there is abuse, unless it's very overt, a lot of times it can be covert. So they don't even know that they're in an abusive relationship until they start breaking away or thinking more about the escape plan and things like that. And so talking with other people, especially that have been through it, I feel like is really starting the journey to healing. And speaking of healing, that name itself is so powerful. So what does that mean to each of you, the healing well and living free? So the name itself is so powerful. What does that mean to each of you, healing well and living free?
Well, the title actually came to me in the middle of the night. I woke up and the title of the book, when I was, still writing it, I was like, Healing Well and Living Free from an Abusive Relationship. So I wrote it down because I was so nervous that I was going to forget by the time I woke up in the morning. And honestly, I'm a woman of deep faith. My relationship with the Lord is like just central in my life. And I prayed all the way through that book. And so I believe God gave me the name. And the foundation, I won't share with the original. The original name was different for the foundation. And it just didn't, every time I said it, it just didn't seem right. And then as we put the board together and discussed, it was like, why not name it the same name as the book? So I was like, that's brilliant. And so really that's how it came to be.
Perfect. And Jill, what does the name mean to you?
Dr. Ramona's talked about the difference between, healing, but then also really healing well. And there's a lot of things that I've felt like, okay, I'm healing through this, or my children are healing, but it's next level to be in the process of healing and to have really healed well and to really healed so well that we can live in this freedom mentally and physically. And it's a process and it's not linear, but I think the title is hope giving, that it's possible. And it's one of the greatest blessings in my life and Dr. Ramona and these other people we have on the board, where we can help share that hope with other people, that there really is an after. There really is a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm still seeing mine, but it's a process. And that hope is literally life-giving when you're in the thick of this and it seems like it's getting dark again.
I love what Jill said right there, and that's absolutely right. There was the kind of moving on from things that we've been through in our lives, and there's moving forward. And I believe there's a big difference between the two. And moving on is more of like letting time pass, and time heals all wounds and these things that, fool ourselves into believing. But moving forward involves intentionality. And that's what healing well involves. It involves intentional things, for lack of better words, that we do to heal at the deepest levels. And it's not just for me or for Jill or for a select few. What I want to make sure that we cover is, there's a lot of great domestic violence nonprofits out there doing great work. Ours is different in the respect that we focus on Make a Moment, which has a whole science behind it. And secondly, that we've created, I'll take this out, but, this, our Advancing Justice resource, there is nothing out there that talks about or gives attorneys and court professionals an actual guide on how to safely represent domestic violence survivors and their children. Because as we know, horrible things have happened in family court and are happening nationwide to people that are in these situations. Because in some cases, attorneys don't really understand. They don't understand domestic violence, and they're duped. Judges aren't trained. One or two courses in DV is not going to cut it. And it's the same thing with domestic violence. It's very important that a person goes to someone who's properly trained, but also that they realize that you can heal from this trauma. Your life, like Jill says, can be better than you've ever known it, because there's going to be parts of yourself that rise to the surface as you heal. So anyhow, that's...
Well, and a lot of times I have found, and I'm sure all experienced this, where you don't even know what you're made of and what you're capable of until you're forced to figure it out, right? And you had mentioned that there's a lot of programs out there to help domestic violence survivors and thrivers, but sifting through them, finding the right one, being brave enough to, or desperate enough, or whatever the situation might be, to actually reach out and kind of go through where can I find help. That takes a lot. And one thing I do want to take a second to shout out about your website. I love the feature that as soon as you go on your website, the pop-up that comes up about a safe escape from the website in case you need to quickly get out of it. And I actually went through the process of just like testing out, what does this look like? And I loved it. So I think that's a great feature on there because I do, unfortunately, we all work with women and men that are in these situations and they don't feel safe and they don't feel like you can't even research these things without feeling like you're putting your life in jeopardy. And how can we do this safely? So the fact that you were able to, you obviously have the experience to put those features in your website, I think is great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Talking about your program, there are a lot of domestic violence resources out there like you had been talking about. So what makes yours different than a lot of the other ones that are out there?
Jill, how would you answer that question? Because you have experience with a lot of different organizations. I know what I would say, but I'd love to hear your thoughts first.
We talked a lot about what we wanted to offer as a foundation. And we really talked through things like vetting resources and attorneys and therapists and a lot of ideas that ultimately was going to be so challenging to give good options, to actually give these good vetted resources nationally, that finding this make a moment as is something that we can follow through on. That's a big thing is what can we follow through on? Because when women have come to me and even stayed in my home and we've gone through lists of resources that the district attorney's office can give you, and you make these calls and you're not getting calls back, and these are hotlines or warm lines. And so it was really essential that what we offer is something we can do in real time. You're going to be communicated with. We can follow through on this make a moment and not be in a position where we've just referred you to some attorney who we thought was a good attorney, but then you had a judge that wasn't great. You got a really poor outcome. And now you're upset because we said maybe things would go well because of this decision. We really thought through what is a foundation we could do that would make an impact, that would be a positive, hope-giving impact. And I think Make a Moment is so special in that regard because I've never seen anything like it.
Okay, so as we discussed, we know that there's a lot of resources out there in the domestic violence arena. How is yours different than what other programs you've seen so far?
I definitely agree with you with what you just said there. There are many wonderful organizations, and I've been involved with many different organizations, and they're doing great work. Ours in particular, I believe what in a sense sort of sets us apart, if you will, is the emphasis on the positive. And what I mean by that, obviously domestic violence is horrific on all levels. But our initiative of Make a Moment is in a sense kind of another way of looking at it. The idea of Make a Moment came honestly out of my own experience with my kids when we would have to leave because things got so bad at home and it was dangerous. I would take the kids and I would travel several hours away and rent a hotel motel, and I would try to just get the cash together because that was another whole issue, to be able to do something fun with them. Go to a water park, amusement park, just something that would be fun. Well, years later, my kids are all in their 30s now. My youngest two actually, said to me, they said, Mom, remember those times that you would take us and we'd go on vacation? And I'm like, what particular time are you referring to? I remember when we went to the water park and that was not vacation. That was getting out of Dodge because things were so bad. And because I was very far away from my family and it was super secretive, and I didn't have the support in place to really at that time make a permanent shift, or so I thought. But so Make a Moment came from that. And the whole idea behind it is this scientific research, if you will, called glimmers. And glimmers are the opposite in a sense of triggers. And so how triggers negatively rewire our brain, glimmers positively or therapeutically in a healing way rewire our brain. So when we experience these moments of infused joy, it actually can heal and does heal our brain. And so with Make a Moment is kind of like Make-A-Wish Foundation, but for a different cause. Mm-hmm. And where we provide these opportunities for domestic violence survivors and their kiddos to experience like I did all those years ago. And Jill didn't get to do this with your children. Explain how it was different for you guys, Jill.
Early in my marriage and when there was violence, I learned to save up money, especially after 2015, after meeting Dr. Ramona, is to put money aside so that we could escape. But it never went so far as to doing fun things. It was just the escape part.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I'd been going through this system for so long, one point, my children ended up in dependency. We were in dependency court instead of family court. And once your children are in the foster system, even though they were in my placement, they get CASAs. And CASAs are afforded the funding to take children who are within the system to Legoland, to Disneyland, to fun days and amusement parks. But the parents aren't involved.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what these families need who are trying to heal and come together. And it was a sweet thing to be able to send my children off to go get ice cream with their casa who reminded them of their grandma and they adored her. And so I would love they had that. But we needed that. And when you're often going through divorce and all of your finances are being just looked at with a magnifying glass constantly, to where if you do take your child off to a water park, attorneys and your ex-spouse will go after you for spending your money that way. And it's such a special thing to be able to, with Make a Moment, say, we've got you on that. Go have fun. Go prioritize this thing that you and your children need. I don't know many women who've had that experience. I know my own family has gone 10 years without a vacation, but it's because of the kindness of family members who said, let us buy you a pass here or send you there, that we were able to make that happen. So I'm so thrilled about Make a Moment to be able to offer this to women who otherwise cannot afford this or are even scared to spend what little money they have on something fun that's considered not necessary, because it's so necessary.
Well, as a former CASA, I never got to go to Legoland, so I missed out on that. But I will speak to the fact that my experience of being a CASA, yet like you are an advocate for the children, and as lovely and meaningful as that is, I kept saying the kids, when I go to visit the home and I'm visiting the family, who's advocating for the parent? I'm like, the parents are the one who needs the help. Yes, the children need somebody looking out for them, making sure they're safe and all of these things. But who is doing that for the parents, right? The parents are the ones who need help. And you are right. So I love that your program is focusing on that. And I also remember sitting in my lawyer's office and I had purchased like an oil diffuser when I was going through my divorce. So I was like, maybe this will help me calm down if I smell some lavender, right? And then having to explain what that charges to your stuffy lawyer, it's like, that's embarrassing. And I'm sure that's not even the most embarrassing thing that they see, but for me, because it wasn't necessary, right? And you're just like, yes, your life is under a microscope. So tell me a little bit more about how do families, women, men, how do they find this program? How do they apply for this program? And then also if somebody wants to gift to make this happen, how do you guys do all of this?
Well, they can contact us. There is a section on our website where they can apply for a moment. And so people will answer the questions and why they would like it and a little bit about their background. And then we have a Make a Moment coordinator that actually vets through the applications that come in. So you apply through our website, but also there is another section where you can refer a moment. If you know someone who's going through this type of situation with their children, you can refer them to us. And so we will then take their application into consideration. And of course, we accept donations and people to partner with us so that we can provide these moments. And once people understand there's actual science behind this, and it's important that we do have fun in life, but it's more than sending someone for a good time. It's actually therapeutic in their lives. And to think that my kids brought it up, years, couple decades after they actually experienced these times, and they, in their mind, it's frozen as it was a positive thing. Mom, we went on vacation, and they had no idea really why I was doing what I was doing. And I'm not saying that's how it will happen with people that apply to us. Maybe it would, I don't know, for some. But the point is how do the children remember it? And what's the impact that it has on them that, wow, there can be life after this horror.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And Jill, do you have any follow-up on that?
Having been through this system for over 10 years now, helping so many other women, knowing dozens of other women who are going through this and knowing what their children have gone through or have aged out going through this. To have these positive memories infused in what often is so high conflict and confusing to a child, where that child may take many more years to even understand that was abuse. I know my own said I didn't know what that word was, so I didn't know what that meant. And they only know the mom and dad they have and the way they treat them.
Mm-hmm.
And often the parent who is mistreating is also the fun parent who makes sure they do go to Disneyland and Legoland and to the beach all the time. So it's very confusing. I think it's so exciting to get to ensure that protective parents get that time with their children, because the children desperately need those memories too, where moms also, the parent who's going, the protective parent, isn't worried about the cost at the same time. Because even though we do make these things happen, sometimes you're just like, well, no, we're not going to get that on that, or we're only going to drink water at the meal. Yes,
Right.
we're eating
We
out.
can go, but don't ask me for a snack or a souvenir.
Yeah, there's all the extra layers of stress on it. So to really create a full moment where you're not afraid that the kid's going to ask to play that arcade game too, and you're like, it's just so essential and exciting and hope giving to be able to give that moment in time. And I believe it will resonate just as it did with Dr. Ramona's kids for years.
That's awesome. And I know, if anybody goes to your website, this is just one part of it, right? This is just one area of your foundation. The other area of your foundation is collaborating with attorneys and the system, the whole system, so to speak. So could you tell me, how are you working with the court system to try to change the way that things are progressing, whether it's through initiatives with lobbying for different, programs and things like that, attorneys getting educated on domestic violence? Do you want to talk a little bit on that piece?
Sure. Well, this is really the second leg, if you will, of this two-pronged approach. The first is make a moment. The second is the advancing justice in family law. We created a resource. And when I say we, Jill really spearheaded and worked on this for over a year based on her own experience and the experiences of numerous protective parents that she has gotten to know very well and gotten to know their cases. And there's no resource out there like this one that really shows attorneys and court professionals how to safely represent domestic violence survivors and their children. And Jill, what are your thoughts on advancing justice? Why is it so unique?
Yeah. Advancing Justice was born out of my own experience of losing custody of my children in a quick flipped custody switch that I didn't see coming and I didn't know was legal or possible at all within family court. I'd been a foster parent in Los Angeles and San Diego counties, so I understood how children were removed from dangerous or neglectful homes. I had no idea it was even possible for children to be taken from a safe parent from a safe home. So getting beyond the initial shock, I had to find out, how does this happen? How does the system lead to this? And I dug into the news stories and the research and everything I had no idea that existed prior, and started printing every research study, every Saunders study and Joan Meyer and every expert I could find. And when I went to meet with my children's attorney, a couple months after they were taken from me, I asked her if she wanted to see it all because she was not okay with the custody switch. And I learned that she didn't know any of this either.
Mm-hmm.
So from all of that, I thought, if she doesn't know this and she was a well-meaning minors counsel, I like to hope to believe that there are other attorneys and judges who don't understand the ramifications of some of these decisions they're making, some of these programs and therapies that they're putting children through that promise
to heal and fix and help relationships that are actually incredibly traumatizing and damaging to children. So that is the education component of this, that we want to make all of this available to attorneys and to judges. It's a controversial perspective. I'm always telling Dr. Ramona, there's a part of me, because I work with so many advocates who are like, the problem is not education. The problem is not, we all see the different problems within a system. But I did see an attorney who wanted to know this. And I like to think she's not the only one. And we have to do what we can to provide this information that's not offered in law school. They are experts in the law, not in domestic abuse. And the experts who are being court appointed to speak to these children who are therapists, according to their CVs that I'm seeing, they're also not experts in abuse. They're just becoming the favorites to appoint by judges and attorneys in their relationships that they have. And they're at bar association events together. And this is beyond that. This is an opportunity to show those other people who are not already causing a lot of problems what they could be doing right. I don't think we're going to turn the system around, turn around the people who want to continue to function the way they have functioned. But I have to have hope that there are professionals who want to turn things around and not continue this perpetuating post-separation abuse, through the courts, this abuse by proxy.
And do you ever find, I feel like I love when you find a lawyer or a judge or anybody in that realm who is willing and able to accept additional education, and they're not, set in their ways, so to speak. I feel like that can be few and far between, unfortunately. Have you experienced where you, as the protective parent, almost come across as, I'm doing this to get my way, not to educate you, right? It almost sometimes has like the reverse effect where it's, I want to educate you on the fact that this is out there, this post-separation abuse. I'm not causing a stink just to get my kids back because I want them. I want control, right? There's a lot of layers between who is the safe parent, who is the one that's going to look out for the best interest of the child. And does that make sense, what I'm asking? Okay, go ahead.
It's why I feel like I'm in a unique position because of where I am in my case, because so many experts and professionals chose not to believe the children in me. And ultimately, they were all wrong. They were either, we could say they were colluding, or they were all just completely duped by my ex-husband. And if he can convince that many people of something that is completely false, even those professionals have the opportunity to say, wow, we were wrong, whether they ever say that to me or not. But in a case like mine, where there are now so many criminal charges, and the dependency court had to take over the entire case to protect my children from the family court, there was a clear violation of due process, of so many things. And now that my case has made its way to a certain place, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything about my case. It's more a matter of, we've got a few dozen other cases here in San Diego that look a whole lot like mine, and we've got a lot more across this country. So I'm not an anomaly. Stop treating these other women the way you were treating me, and get educated. So we stop putting children through what mine have gone through. And children are ending up with severe mental health issues, and some of them losing their lives over this. It's worth putting the time and money and education into so that we can stop this nonsense that's been going on for decades.
And I know you've mentioned a couple times that you both are based in LA, San Diego area, California. Does this program and all of your outreach and your work with attorneys in the justice system, I want the audience to know that it's not just California based. So if they're listening from where I am in Virginia, they can still reach out and get support.
Well, that was one of the things that was very important to us, that this is not a Southern California resource. This is a national resource, and we were very intentional as we put this document together that it could speak into the lives of people, regardless of what state that you're in. So that was definitely something that we were very careful to do. And the idea behind our resource is that it's honestly a vetting tool, if you will. When a survivor contacts us and she or he, if the case may be, is in the process of trying to find an attorney who really understands domestic violence and the complexities, and not only domestic violence, but understanding the mindset of the abuser. It's like if you're going to battle, it's a good plan to know your adversary, to know your opponent, to know how they think and what their strategy is likely to be so that you know how to protect, right? It's kind of that same sort of concept. So when a domestic violence survivor contacts our foundation and they've talked to several different attorneys and they're trying to decide who's going to be the best fit and who's actually a safe and knowledgeable fit, we will then give them the resource that then they can share with the one or two that they've narrowed it down to. And then we will actually our foundation pays the attorneys to read. It's an 80 to 90 page document. So it's not, just a quick read. It's not a super long read, but it's not a quick read. We pay them. We actually invest in this and then screen to see if they've actually read it and have processed the material. And depending on the reaction of the attorney, if the attorney's like, wow, I didn't understand all this. Thank you so much. Now I know better. I'm better equipped to know how to represent this individual. Okay, check. They're likely going to be a safe, viable, good attorney. If, however, they're like, well, this is where you said here, not so much. That's a red flag to say that there's either a gap in their understanding or they full on just don't believe. And if they're not understanding how to protect, then they're going to be a part of really secondary abuse in the lives of the protective parent and the children. And so you don't want to work with them. You don't want to hire them. You don't want to spend your valuable money on a person who's actually going to cause you further harm, which was Jill's situation many, many times. And so that's why we put this together. This is a vetting tool that survivors can use to know that their legal counsel that they're thinking about hiring is going to be safe, knowledgeable, and strategic.
Yeah, I love that because you're right. And Jill, you've experienced this. Like she said, you go to a trusted professional and say, this is my story. And then when you get pushed back, it's like going to the doctor and telling you that nothing's wrong with you. Right. And so it's like, I know something's wrong and I need a professional to help me sift through all of this. And that can be very overwhelming, defeating. Like you said, Dr. Ramona, very expensive to go through these attorneys to find the right one. And so I love that that's part of your mission.
It's also, this resource has a lot of do's and don'ts that will cause many attorneys to go, ooh, but I want to do that. I want to do that don't. And I do that don't on a regular basis. But what we are familiar with is cases involving domestic abuse. What the majority of attorneys are familiar with are all divorce cases. It's just a percentage of them that include domestic abuse. So fine, if you want to use these private mediators, if you want to make things go private, if you want to use these parent coordinators, if you want to use all these people on your cases, so be it. But when the cases involve domestic abuse, this is why we put so many links in here to the research. If it involves domestic abuse, you're endangering your client. If it involves domestic abuse and your client comes to you, so many of us protective parents go to judges and attorneys and say, please court order therapy for my children so they have someone to talk to. Please court order this. We think all the court ordered experts are going to be helpful. And we don't know what we don't know, which is it actually increases the risk of danger to the children and us the more we ask for all these court ordered people. So alternatively, one of our dues is make sure our children are allowed to keep the doctors and therapists they already have if they have them, maintain continuity for our children, all that was normal for them that existed before this started blowing up. And then it just keeps it from becoming this conflict of now you need someone else telling you how to do things and essentially asking you to sign your own constitutional rights away so that all the experts start making the decisions for when your kids play soccer or where they go to school.
That's right. Yes. That's the hardest part is when you have the judges, the co-parenting therapists, the everybody, right? The whole pot is telling you, they're dictating your life for you. And that, if you're already in a vulnerable spot being, in this domestic violence situation, and then that layered on top of it, it's very crushing to the self-esteem that we're trying to build back up and, all of these things. It's very easy for people to kind of give up. because they don't have anybody on their side listening to them.
You're not the friendly parent. If there's a family parent provision, the protective parent's not going to be the friendly one because we're protecting.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And abusers, that's why it's so important to understand how they think, how they show up. They're able to do so many people. If you don't know what to look for and you don't understand what you're working with, it's like if I have diabetes and I'm getting treated for cancer, well, my diabetes is going to get worse. It's like you have to diagnose properly so you treat properly. Same as the situation in family court. You have to know what you're facing.
Mm-hmm. Right. So do you want to elaborate a little bit on what is next? What's up the road for your foundation? What are you guys in the middle of working on? What are your hopes and dreams for the future?
Well, we definitely are going to, in 2026, Jill and I are going to put together a 4-part and maybe a little bit longer a teaching modules, I should say, where we take advancing justice in family law and we turn it into an actual course. And so that we're not having to redo it over and over and over. We're going to have it professionally recorded. And that will make that available to law firms nationwide.
Amazing. That sounds really good. And how are you finding the lawyers that are interested or hearing about what you both are doing?
Well, right now we are launching this. Okay, so you're interviewing us in a time where it's very fresh. So we're getting the information out there. That obviously is going to continue to grow as the word gets out there more, and we're letting people know through social media channels and what have you. But it was a long project in the making. And like Jill said, Jill, you alluded to how we cited everything. We were very, very particular about that we did not cite a site of a site. When we cited something, it was the original research, and this document is loaded with that. And so it's not just our word, it's we're taking you to the direct persons or persons who have researched it and why they've come to believe what they believe, working with numerous protective parents and their children that were in similar situation as Jill. There's a pattern, okay? And it's happening nationwide, and we need to educate people on this, but with correct information so that they can move forward safely. Because basically there's 2 groups. There's the one group that they mean well, but they do harm because they don't know. And there's the other group that's a closed system that it's about mutually benefiting each other that are in this closed system. And so the judges refer to certain attorneys who refer to certain minor counsel, who refer to certain court evaluators. It's a closed system. And that's very dangerous when that closed system is driven for monetary gain rather than truly, now they may say we're about the welfare of the children, but when money's the driver, that can't be. You can't ride 2 horses at the same time, one or the other.
That's right. Jill, do you have any additional thoughts on that about your hopes and dreams for the next year as you guys are starting to launch this?
Yeah, I look forward to working on this training and collaborating with other experts and professionals who I've been reading and listening to and meeting over the years. That was part of this for me, was calling a couple of those attorneys and therapists who I have so much respect for, and going through some of my do's and don'ts and asking them their advice on things, because it's so essential to me that it can't, but at this point, but this doesn't come across as a bunch of angry advocates or angry women. Yeah, we're angry about what's happening. Absolutely. But we're coming at this not just with great empathy and sympathy for other people going through it, and understanding that attorneys are trying to do their jobs and they've got big caseloads, but also the research is really clear, and a lot of the research in this has been really clear for over 20 years. So the system needs to do better when we already know that so much of what they're doing to children and protected parents in the courtroom today is so antiquated and so dangerous and increases trauma and the ability for anybody to heal from years of abuse that they're escaping through the proper channels that they're told to use. So I'm I'm really excited to collaborate and get to share and just meet more attorneys and judges and professionals who want to be a part of changing the system into something that helps truly protect and prioritize safety.
I love that. I think that's a really good goal. I think just like everything else that's worth doing, it's probably sometimes feeling like an uphill battle that you probably hit a lot of roadblocks and challenges along the way, but certainly worth the fight at the end to help break the mold that this country has found itself in with the judicial system. If you could leave the listeners with one takeaway about your foundation, what would that be?
I would say that our foundation is about offering an experience with your children that you'll remember forever and they will remember forever. And it'll be a part of a tapestry that, although riddled with a lot of pain and trauma, will have infused moments that they will carry with them into their adult lives, and that you can still experience times like that with your kiddos. And secondly, I would say on the legal side of things, that I believe that we are a beacon for people. And it's not to say we have all the answers. Like Jill said, we are working with other legal personnel and court personnel across the nation. We're not an isolated island. We want to join hands with others that truly are driven by the desire to protect those who have been traumatized on the deepest level and not cause further trauma, either knowingly or unknowingly. And so we are humbled by the fact that we are in this position. And we know that it's by God's grace that we got here. And we know that what the good Lord started, he will bring to completion. And we're excited to see it continue to grow.
I love that message. Jill?
I love that message too. All of us who are putting time into this foundation, everyone on the board has their own individual experiences with domestic abuse and are coming at this with just hearts desiring to provide all of that to anyone who comes to us, and that hope that we need, that we are all survivors. And I hope that, as I was able to see in Dr. Ramona in the years I've known her in the last decade, to just know what is possible. That it's possible to heal and thrive, live well and live free after all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me today and talking about your foundation. I'm excited to watch you grow and thrive over the year to come and years after that to come. So thank you so much for spending your time with me today. And where can people find more about the foundation? What's the website?
Sure. It's hwlffoundation.org. So Healing Well Living Free Foundation.org. So we abbreviate it. So you can reach us there, or you can reach us through email at contact@hwlffoundation.org.
Okay, great. Thank you so much again for joining us today. And I hope we'll have you back to maybe in a few months or a year to see how it's all going and hear some awesome stories about people who get to break free for a little bit and have some fun with their kids. And then also get the support that they need.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, Shauna.
Thank you. Bye, Jill. Bye, Dr. Ramona. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you're navigating the challenging journey of divorce and need personalized guidance, I'm here to help. As a dedicated divorce coach, I can support you through every step of the process, providing the tools and strategies you need to rebuild and thrive. Visit my website at shaunawardencoaching.com to book your appointment today. Remember, you don't have to go through this alone. Together, we can turn this difficult time into a new beginning. Until next time, take care and stay strong.